There's 5 things you must do now with Navy Federal Credit Union to get approved for credit. And I'm not talking about those baby limits that can't cover a weekend trip or a laptop. I'm talking about big boy limits, $10,000, $25,000, even $50,000 plus with real buying power. The problem is that most people rush in, hit apply too soon, and ended up getting denied. But stick with me and I'll show you how to get approved even with bad credit, the highest increase you expect with Navy Federal, and the secret scoring system that Navy Fed uses to approve your applications. Now here's the thing, Navy Federal is amazing, don't get me wrong, but let's be real, it's not open to everyone. If you're not affiliated with the military, it's really game over before you even start. And I know that's frustrating, especially when you're trying to build real credit with high limit cards and low rates and with lenders who actually want to work with you. That's exactly why I put together a credit union database with 150 plus credit unions that anyone can join, no military connection needed. Credit card limits can go up to $50,000, and I'll give you step-by-step instructions to join, including backdoor methods, and you're going to see which credit bureau each one pulls from before you apply. And these are relationship-based lenders that actually look at more than just your FICO score, and they're giving out real credit, not starter cards with toy limits. So if Navy Fed's locked for you, this database is the next best move. So definitely hit the link below to get instant access to it. Now, here's something most people never talk about, and it's one of the biggest reasons they get denied by Navy Federal. Your FICO score isn't the only score that matters. Navy Federal has its own internal credit score, and it's the one score you probably don't even know you have until it's too late. This score ranges from 100 to 450, and it's calculated based on how you treat Navy Federal specifically, not Experian, not TransUnion, none of those. So what affects this score? It's actually activity in your checking and savings account is one of those factors. Are you still depositing money regularly, keeping a solid balance? Navy Federal watches that. They also look at your direct deposit status. If you don't have the direct deposit flowing into your account, you're basically telling them, I'm just here for credit. And they'll treat you like it too. They also look at your product usage, especially secured loans like pledge loans. They want to see that you're not afraid to build with them, even if you have to start secured. And they look to see if you have too many inquiries. Navy Federal sees all those recent hard pulls and thinks, why are you shopping around so much? That hurts your internal trust score. And here's the cool part, after you apply, whether you get approved or denied, Navy Federal sends you this internal score in the mail. So it's right there on paper. And it even lists the reasons that you don't score higher. So do not throw this away. Most banks would never give you insights like this. Now, here's a data point that perfectly shows how Navy Federal really works behind the scenes. One member had subprime credit, a 595 Equifax score, a 630 Experian, and a 640 TransUnion. There's no direct deposits and barely used their debit card. Really not the profile that you'd expect to walk away with a $7,000 approval with their More Rewards card. But that's exactly what happened. So here's how they did it and what you can do to learn from it. So in week 1, they laid the foundation. Right after joining Navy Federal, they opened a basic checking and savings account, no flagship account, no bells and whistles, just the free version of that account. Then they dropped in $250 into their checking to get the relationship started, and that was it. And by the way, it's not about the size of the deposit, it's really more about getting activity in the system. Now, what they did in week 1 as well was they started the pledge loan. So 2 days later, they transferred that $250 from the checking account into a savings and opened a shared pledge loan. This is Navy Federal's version of a secured personal loan. And here's where it gets interesting. They waited a couple days after opening it and then paid off 80% of the loan. So they let the remaining balance ride on autopay. So this step alone builds credit history, internal trust, and shows that you're willing to work your way up with Navy Federal. There's no hard pull required for this loan, but Navy Fed still reports it to the bureaus and logs it internally. Now in week 2, they made more activity. So they moved $2,500 into their checking account, then transferred it to savings. A few days later, they pulled it back out. And then 2 days after that, they put $2,700 back in. Now, why does this matter? Well, it's because Navy Federal watches movement, not just balances. So it's a relationship-based credit union. They want to see signs of life like deposits, transfers, and activity, not someone who just parks $5 and then goes ghost. Now, again, in week 2, they added one more product. They opened a $50 Easy Start CD, one of Navy Federal's entry-level certificates. It's not about the amount, it's about stacking products and showing you're not here to just borrow and bounce. every product really equals more trust. Now on week 3, they made a huge shift. So by this point, they had a checking and savings account, a secured pledge loan, a CD, and active deposits and transfers. So they ran the pre-approval tool again, and this time they were pre-approved for every single Navy Federal card. Now, mind you, just 1 week earlier, they ran it and only got offered the In Rewards secured card. And then when they applied for a $15,000 auto loan, they got denied before because of a 6-year-old repo on the report. But now, Navy Federal saw a different person. They saw a member who's active, committed, and building with them. They ended up choosing the Navy Federal More Rewards Amex and was instantly approved with a $7,000 limit. So they had no direct deposits going in, only 3 debit card purchases, a FICO score in the 590 to 640 range. So really let that sink in. Really not good credit here. So based on their data point, here's a step-by-step of how you can get approved with Navy Federal, even if your credit isn't perfect. Now, Navy Federal isn't just handing out 25K cards for fun. They want to see that you're building with them first. And that starts by treating this like a relationship, not a transaction. So step 1 is to open that checking and savings account and show them that you're alive. Start with the basics, open a free checking and savings account. Don't worry about the premium flagship stuff. Just get your foot in the door. And you want to deposit at least $200 to $300 to get activity rolling. So within the first few days, use your debit card a couple of times, buy a coffee, pay a bill, send a friend money on Zelle. Small moves count. Navy Federal wants to see that you're a real member, not a ghost account. Then 2, use that pledge loan to build internal trust. So once you've got some activity, take it up a notch. Transfer funds from your checking into a savings and open a shared pledge loan. This is Navy Fed's version of a secure personal loan. It doesn't require a hard credit pull, but it does get reported to the credit bureaus. So here's the ideal play. Choose a low loan amount. $200 to $500 is fine, but a few thousand is obviously better. And then let it sit for a few days. And then manually pay off 80% of that loan. Then put the rest on auto pay. This tells Navy Federal, I'm responsible, I repay early, and I'm not risky. So step 3 is you want to build activity and keep the money in there. So once your pledge loan is active, it's time to show Navy Federal that you're financially consistent, not just passing through. So start by making a strong deposit, whether it's $500 or $1,000 or more, and let that money stay put. Avoid withdrawing unless you absolutely need to. This is because Navy Federal isn't just watching for movement, they're watching for stability. Higher average daily balances show that you're financially stable and not scrambling, and that boosts your internal trust score. And you can still create activity by transferring money between checking and savings, making small debit card purchases, paying a bill or two through your account, or even setting up a recurring transfer or subscription. Then for step 4, you want to open more products like a CD. So now that you've got checking, savings, a loan, and account activity, you want to round it out with one more product. A $50 Easy Start CD is perfect. It's low risk, shows that you're investing in the relationship, and it adds another check mark to your internal profile. Just like any bank, Navy Federal values product diversity. Even small accounts add weight to your internal score. Now for step 5, you want to let this simmer and then strike. So once you've got that checking and savings and you have that open and active, you also have a pledge loan started and mostly paid down. You got a few debit card purchases, and you have deposits and withdrawals and account movement, and you also have one more extra product like a CD, you want to wait at least 2 to 3 weeks before running the pre-approval tool. You want to let your activity season a bit. That waiting period gives Navy Fed's internal system time to recognize your effort. In the data point that I modeled, the member ran the tool again after 3 weeks, and this time they were pre-approved for every single card. So let's say you've got your first Navy Federal credit card. Maybe it came with a $3,000 starting limit, or maybe you hit it big with $10,000 or more. But here's the truth. Getting approved is just step 1. If you want to tap into Navy Federal's real power, the kind that unlocks 20K, 25, or even 50K in total credit, then you need a plan to grow that limit strategically. You can do it, but here's how. You want to wait for the 91-3 window. Navy Federal uses predictable timelines for credit limit increases, and you can become eligible after 91 days and 3 billing statements have passed since your card was open. This is known as the 91-3 rule, and it's key to growing your credit early. So when that 91-day window opens, it's time to make your move. Log into Navy Federal's app or website and then request a credit limit increase. Now, as of late October of last year, Navy Federal no longer lets you select the amount that you want want to request. You simply ask for an increase, and then they'll either approve or deny you based on your profile and internal score. But here's what we know. We know that the maximum automatic increase they currently allow is $8,000. Many members still walk away with $3,000 up to $7,500 increases even without perfect credit though. And it's a soft pull if you do it online, so there's no impact to your credit score. But listen, do not request a credit limit increase by phone. That could trigger a hard inquiry. So even though you can't type in a number anymore, the internal logic hasn't changed. If your usage, payment history, and activity are solid, you're still in line for a strong increase. You know, one member got approved for a credit limit increase earlier this month, and they said they crossed the 6-month date with their Cash Rewards Plus card and requested a credit limit increase on the mobile app. They were approved for the maximum $8,000, and they increased from $5,000 up to $13,000. So once you've got your first credit limit increase under your belt, you're at a fork in the road. First, you could wait 180 plus days and request another credit limit increase, or you could apply for a whole nother card like the More Rewards, the Platinum, or the Flagship card. I would say if your goal is to maximize your total credit limit fast, go for card number 2 next. And here's why. Navy Federal typically gives higher starting limits on their new cards than they do through credit limit increase requests, especially if you kept usage low and paid on time and kept your internal score growing. Many members are getting 15 to 25K limits on their second card, even if their first card started at just 3 to 5K. Now, on the other hand, if you're not planning to open multiple cards and just want to grow your credit line slowly, then waiting 180 plus days and requesting another credit limit increase is the safe route, especially if you're managing other cards or don't want another hard pull just yet. But listen, if avoiding hard pulls is more important to you and you're a new business owner, there's a new card that should be right at the top of your list. And one business owner just got approved for a $20,000 business card with just a soft credit pull with this new lender. So click on the next video to learn how this new business card lets you get approved with no docs, no hard pull, and no real business established yet. Thank you for watching.